Tonight on NewsWatch, preparing for military action in Syria. A look at what that could mean here in the U.S. and in the Middle East.
Plus, containing the rimfire. Crews battle the blaze, threatening parts of Yosemite National Park.
And the miraculous story of a man who was brought back to life after 45 minutes of being dead. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. Has the situation in Syria reached a tipping point? Good evening. I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. The United States says it's undeniable that the Syrian government used chemical weapons against its own people. Now the U.S. and several key allies are planning a response. Dale Hurd has more in tonight's top story.
Judging from the rhetoric coming out of the mouths of Western leaders, the U.S. and its allies seem to have already decided to attack Syria. Even before UN inspectors have had a chance to fully investigate who was behind the nerve gas attack that killed 355 people, the U.S. has picked out potential targets, and Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel told the BBC that our military is ready to go.
The United States Department of Defense is ready to carry out those options.
Secretary of State John Kerry says the Syrian government must be held accountable, and anyone who doubts the Assad regime was behind the nerve gas attack could somehow be immoral.
Anyone who could claim that an attack of this staggering scale could be contrived or fabricated needs to check their conscience and their own moral compass.
But most Americans oppose an attack. A Reuters Ipsos poll shows 60% said the United States should not intervene in Syria's civil war, while just 9% thought President Obama should act. That number improves to only 25% if it's proven the Assad government carried out the attack. Russia, an ally of Syria, says there's no evidence the Assad regime did it, and described the West as a monkey with a hand grenade. The Arab League, which is dominated by nations hostile to Syria, today blamed the Syrian government for the attack. Damascus says it didn't do it and warned the U.S. to stay out. Recently, some have called the Obama administration's Middle East policy a disaster after the White House backed the extremist Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, going against the majority of Egyptians.
I think they have to reestablish some degree of credibility and deterrence, not only for Syria, but for the broader region.
While the White House says President Obama has not yet made a decision, officials say any attack would be limited. Getting drawn into a ground war in Syria is the last thing this president needs. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
James Phillips is the Senior Research Fellow for Middle East Affairs at the Heritage Foundation, and he joins us now with more. James, what kind of military intervention might be used in Syria, and do you think it's a good idea for the U.S.?
Well, I think the U.S. has mobilized a fleet of ships in the eastern Mediterranean, including at least 4 Ale Burke-class guided missile destroyers. 2 aircraft carriers reportedly are within range, and there could be airstrikes launched from 2 different bases in Turkey and perhaps from elsewhere in the Middle East. The administration, I think, must take some kind of action because the president a year ago warned that the use of chemical weapons would be a red line. And the Assad regime has repeatedly used chemicals, and the attack on August 21st is only the most recent episode.
Well, what is at stake for the U.S. if we get involved in Syria?
Well, I think there will be no love lost if the Assad regime is overthrown. It was allied with the Soviet Union. It has supported terrorism against the United States, our citizens and our allies. It's now allied with Iran. And I think one of the goals one of the long-term goals of the strike should be to overthrow the Assad regime, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. And I think there will be a mistake for the U.S. to commit itself now to doing that. And I think it will be a huge mistake if the U.S. sent troops inside Syria. But I think the U.S. has to work with its allies, especially the NATO allies and Turkey, Israel, to a lesser extent Jordan, which is more vulnerable, and put increasing pressure on the Assad regime, help moderate elements of the opposition to overthrow that regime, but realizing that merely overthrowing Assad will not be the end of the story, because Al-Qaeda and other Islamist extremist groups are mushrooming inside Syria, and they still pose a threat not only to Syrians but to Americans.
James, some people compare any U.S. intervention in Syria to the 2003 invasion in Iraq. Are there similarities?
I hope it doesn't come down to an invasion, because that Syria, in some ways, could be even more of a problem in terms of a U.S. occupation force, because the Al-Qaeda and its al-Nusra Front are much stronger in Syria today than they were in Iraq in 2003. I think the Obama administration will try to do this from the air, from the sea, without putting in soldiers on the ground.
Okay. James Phillips of the Heritage Foundation, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew warns Congress the government will run out of money to pay its bills in mid-October. That's unless lawmakers raise the country's borrowing limit, which is capped right now at $16.7 trillion. Lew says it's impossible for the Treasury Department to predict exactly when the debt ceiling will be reached. The government spends more than it takes in, running up annual deficits of more than $1 trillion in each of the past 4 budget years. And massive federal deficits could be the biggest financial challenge the U.S. faces for decades. That's the finding from a survey by the National Association for Business Economics. The economists believe deficits will be even more of a problem in the future because of the ballooning costs of Social Security and Medicare. Those costs will keep rising as the U.S. population gets older.
The world's largest social networking site says governments around the world are demanding the personal information of its users. Facebook released data showing government agents in 74 countries demanded information on about 38,000 Facebook users during the first part of this year. And get this, half of those orders were from authorities in the U.S. In the past, Facebook and other technology companies have been criticized for helping the National Security Agency secretly collect data on customers, but federal law gives government the right to demand data without specific warrants.
This never ends. Well, more than 4,500 structures are in the line of fire as a massive blaze burns near Yosemite National Park. But firefighters say they are making progress in the battle. The fire is about 20% contained.
We're starting to get a little bit of handle on this thing. It's been a real tiger. It's been going around trying to bite its own tail, and it won't let go, but we'll get there.
Weather conditions have been a challenge for the thousands of firefighters battling what's been named the Rim Fire. But the National Weather Service says higher humidity tomorrow could help. There is continued worry, however, that heavy smoke and ash could affect the San Francisco water supply. 85% of the city's water comes from a reservoir near the fire.
Hundreds lined up for marriage licenses today as New Mexico's largest county began issuing them to same-sex couples. A judge ruled Monday for gay marriage to be legal in the state, saying New Mexico's constitution prohibits discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. That after a lesbian couple sought an emergency ruling because one of them is dying. 2 New Mexico counties have already been issuing marriage licenses to gay couples.
New York and Massachusetts could be the next states to ban so-called conversion therapy. That's the treatment method therapists use to try to help kids get rid of unwanted attraction to people of the same sex. Now, lawmakers in both New York and Massachusetts are considering measures to outlaw the practice. Just last week, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie signed a measure making his state the second to ban conversion therapy. California is currently the only other state to do so.
Coming up, a look at how the church is responding to persecution in Egypt.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. the new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes now.
In 2008, my husband Gary departed for heaven. I was still grieving. And then to find out I had cancer, I began praying, God, how do I do this? Where do I do this? Cancer Treatment Centers of America was the place. Dr. Neelam outlined a plan that would take care of my mind and my body, and she prayed with me.
For Bible-believing Christians, we're able to pray with them in a much deeper way as they begin to really rely upon their faith.
At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we believe in the power of faith and prayer as indispensable allies in the fight against complex and advanced stage cancer.
I'm back in Telluride on the mountain skiing. I feel strong and healthy.
Advanced medicine and technology.
And I am a survivor.
The warm embrace of the Spirit and the power of prayer.
These are happy tears.
Please go to cancercenter.com/faith. Appointments available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
At least 13 Christians have been arrested since July in Iran, but the charges against them remain unknown. Reverend Sam Yagnazar of Elam Ministries says now that President Rouhani has expressed his determination to reopen lines of dialogue with the West, Iran should improve treatment of its religious minorities. Along with torture, Christians are facing sentences that range from years in prison to exile for their Christian activities.
Over the past 2 weeks, the church in Egypt has suffered its worst attacks in centuries. Islamic radicalism spurred the violence, but as Chris Mitchell found out, the attacks were met with Christian love.
The city of Minya sits at the epicenter of the persecution against the Christian church. This is the Amir Tadros Church in Minya, just one of the dozens of churches that have been destroyed throughout Egypt. This is a 100-year-old church, and as you can see, it's been completely destroyed on the inside. One Egyptian expert said the violence against the churches in Egypt is the worst in nearly 700 years. This exclusive video, aired for the first time on nationwide TV, shows the inside of the sanctuary is completely gutted and the altar destroyed. Now the church uses this makeshift altar outside, and the pastor explained to us they started holding their services at 6:30 in the morning. Engineers say the church would need to be torn down before it could be rebuilt.
To be sure that everything is burned, they put fire in every place. Before this, they make a sign for Christian places or cars or houses or buildings, and if the place has an X on it, they burn the place.
The churches weren't the only targets. Schools, cars, and businesses owned by Christians were destroyed. Muslim radicals marked Christian businesses with a black X before torching them. Perhaps most shocking was the destruction of this Christian orphanage. This is a Coptic Christian orphanage called Christ Soldiers. Muslim mobs came in here and they destroyed the building, leaving about 200 children without shelter. But they wanted to leave a message for the attackers, and they wrote it on the wall outside. And it said, "You meant to hurt us, but we forgive you. God is love. Everything works out for good." They also wrote, "Love your enemies." Evangelical ministries bore the brunt of many attacks. This is what remains of the bookstore in Minya of the Bible Society of Egypt. Their store in nearby Eshut was also destroyed. Those bookstores used to look like this one, the Bible Society's main bookstore in Cairo. Now the Bibles, Christian books, and children's materials are in shambles.
For the last 130 years, we have been operating. We have bookshops in the streets, in main cities, in Cairo, Alexandria, Tanta, Upper Egypt, and it has never happened in the history of the Bible Society.
According to this Egyptian website, more than 60 churches were attacked from Minya, Alexandria, Giza, Suez, and throughout Egypt. The rampage began after Muslim Brotherhood supporters used the churches as scapegoats for the army's decision to break up 2 Brotherhood protest camps in Cairo. They also blamed the church for participating in the ouster of President Mohamed Morsi. Yet Christians point out many of their Muslim neighbors defended and protected them. They don't see this as a Muslim against Christian issue, but as the Muslim Brotherhood against the Christians. And even though they have been targeted, they are responding with forgiveness and pressing on in the face of persecution. This Sunday school class at the Amir Tadros Church now meets in an alcove off the main building. They're learning about the namesake of the church, who was a Christian martyr. It's not your typical Sunday school lesson.
These days, I think, the children have a life experience. They see their church burned. They see how us forgive our enemies.
We respond as every other Christian has responded in Egypt. We are in Egypt to serve. We are in Egypt to demonstrate the Christian love. We do every effort to be self-restrained and to show the Christian love that the Lord has taught us to show.
The churches are asking for prayer and support from the church worldwide.
They can pray for us all the time, ask Jesus to save us.
What happens in Egypt affects the Middle East. So we ask them to pray for the country, we ask them to pray for Christians, we ask them to pray for the Middle East. And we also ask them to pray for the government, for the existing government, that the Lord may give them wisdom, guidance in every decision they make.
While living under threats, they vow to continue their ministries. They say the buildings have been destroyed, but the church goes on. And their faith remains in Jesus Christ, who promised He would build His church. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Minya, Egypt.
Wow, what a powerful story. In other news, the Pakistani girl who survived a Taliban assassination attempt last year is being given the prestigious International Children's Peace Prize. Malala Yousafzai is an outspoken advocate of girls' education. That fact led a Taliban gunman to shoot the teenager in the head and neck while on her way home from school. After surviving the shooting, Yousafzai moved to the UK to recover and study. She will receive the Children's Peace Prize next month in the Netherlands. The now 16-year-old is also a leading contender for this year's Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow. Up next, the amazing story of a man who was declared dead and what he says brought him back to life.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans. with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right. You could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
Well, it's an unbelievable story. An Ohio man came back to life after being dead for 45 minutes.
Yeah, Tony Yaley astounded the medical community and made headlines around the world. Charlene Israel just traveled to Ohio to discover why Yaley says it's his faith that brought him back to life.
37-year-old Tony Yaley is thankful he could attend church with his family.
Feels great. I was always a believer, but I mean, it's a whole new level now.
In the early morning of August 5th, Tony had difficulty breathing and went into cardiac arrest.
It was 4 a.m. The Lord woke me up. There's no other explanation. I don't get up at 4 a.m. Something just woke me up, and I heard his breathing. And as a nurse, I knew it was not correct. I turned on the light, tried to wake him up. He wouldn't wake up. I took his pulse. He didn't have a pulse, so then I just went into my training and did CPR.
Tony was rushed to the ER at this hospital where he later coded. Doctors worked on him for 45 minutes to save his life. He was later pronounced dead. His family was shocked and heartbroken.
Like it just dropped and like my stomach dropped. I just didn't know how to feel. I just cried.
It was overwhelming shock, a lot of grief.
While nurses prepared the body for his family's final viewing, Melissa kept believing for the impossible.
My 17-year-old cousin, who is a preacher, laid his hand upon me, and the Lord spoke through him, and he called me his child. He said a whole lot more, which I don't remember, but he also said, if we would just believe that it would be done. And from that moment on, I knew he was going to be all right.
Pastor Paul Santoro and his wife Jennifer were at the hospital with Tony's family. Pastor Paul says he had recently been teaching on the power of prayer. The couple had also begun talking to Tony's 17-year-old son Lawrence about the things of God.
I distinctly remember watching him with his elbows on a desk. And he had his head down and he was praying. And then the word came in and the doctors came in and the place erupted with such grief. I'll never forget the sounds of the wailing, the screaming, the crying. And Lawrence jumped up and he went to the wall and he just hit the wall, just really hard. And I saw Lawrence as he was turned to the wall, shaking his head. Then all of a sudden, he straightened up and it was as if he just had this second wind.
Refusing to accept his father's death, Lawrence did something extraordinary.
Something just clicked, and I just came out and I said, Dad, you're not going to die today.
I spoke against the spirit of death in my prayer, and I asked the Lord to give him life and to call him back. And when I did that, Lawrence runs out into the hallway, and we were actually in agreement. He declared that the doctors must not give up hope on his dad. He said that a couple of times, and then he said that his dad, he spoke toward his dad and pointed toward his dad, and he said his dad would live.
Immediately, Tony's body began to show signs of life. He fully awakened 5 days later with no signs of heart damage or defects.
I mean, there's so many little things that need to get out there, miracles that happened after that big one that everybody's clinging to, you know. I mean, even down to, me coming out with no broken ribs, not being sore.
Hospital officials have no medical explanation for Tony's miraculous recovery. They agree there was divine intervention.
I truly think, though, that with the power of all that prayer and all the things that were being done for him is the perfect coalescence of God in our lives and the gifts that he gives us that we should be sharing.
News of his resurrection has spread around the world.
I just think that we were created by an amazing God, that there's only one answer, God.
People who doubt are going to say it's just medical. People who believe say that's just
proof of what I already know to be true.
Tony says he doesn't remember anything about death, no white light, visions of heaven, and no answers why this happened. But he says his faith is stronger and more real than ever.
God steps in when man can do no more. And they had literally came to the end and said, we can do no more. You know, they pronounced me dead, and that's when he came.
The family also want people to worship God, not the miracle.
Our God is an awesome God.
Charlene Israel, CBN News, Dayton, Ohio.
He is an awesome God. Praise you, God. Well, up next, meet a 9-year-old who became a hero over his holiday vacation.
Stop struggling with heavy hoses that are kinked and deliver little or no water. Or worse, break. Introducing the incredible flexible hose. Turn the water on and it expands up to 3 times its original length, so you can easily guide it anywhere you need without tangling. When you turn the water off, as it drains, the hose retracts back to its original shape. Standard rubber hoses can weigh between 8 and 12 pounds, but a 25-foot flexible hose weighs less than a pound. The flexible hose is so compact and lightweight, a child can manage a 75-foot hose easily. The flexible hose will never kink and is guaranteed to take the mess out of watering your lawn and plants. So washing your windows or spraying off your gutters has never been easier. The flexible hose is made of a tough double wall construction that is designed to bend and stretch but never kink.
Flexible hose is designed like a fire hose for speed, storage, and strength to last a really long time.
Call or visit flexiblehose.com to order the incredible flexible hose for only $19.95. Call right now and we will include a 7-way adjustable spray nozzle free. You can choose a full action spray, a gentle mist, a powerful jet, a vertical mist, flat spray, a cone spray, or a soaker setting. So stop coiling your hose with bulky devices. Flexible hose automatically retracts in seconds and weighs less than 1 pound. In fact, a 75-foot hose easily fits in a small bucket and stores away neatly in a drawer. Flexible hose saves you precious space on boats and is perfectly portable for RVs. But wait, order today and we'll give you a second flexible hose system free. Just pay separate processing and handling. That's 2 flexible hoses and 2 7-way adjustable spray nozzles, a $40 value, all for only $19.95. This offer is not available in any store. Order now.
To order flexible hose and take advantage of this amazing double offer, call 1-800-769-3384 or go to flexiblehose.com. Remember, this offer is not available in stores, so call now.
Family vacations are always memorable for parents, and that's especially the case for one family after their son became a hero.
Yeah, the 9-year-old was able to stay calm under pressure, saving the life of a toddler who was drowning. Ethan Temin was swimming at an Orlando area hotel when he noticed a 2-year-old girl face down at the bottom of the pool. That's when he jumped into action. He pulled her out of the water, and 2 bystanders performed CPR on the little girl.
We were just playing and then she was just underwater and it was really weird. Really amazed that she's still alive.
When they are put through the life-saving training over in the UK, you don't think they're ever going to need it, especially not when you're on holiday.
Oh, wow. Ethan's mom says he learned swimming safety at a young age. The local sheriff's office is honoring Ethan with a medal for his quick action. The Wyndham Hotel is also thanking Ethan by sending him to, guess where?
Disney World.
I know. What a better gift.
That's right.
I don't think they could do better than that.
Especially for a kid. Yep.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well, that's all for this edition of NewsWatch.
Thanks so much for watching. And remember, you can tune in tomorrow. Until then, have a great night. Bye-bye.